Okay.
Welcome to FBB Forum. I'm very pleased to welcome the beautiful IFBB women's physique competitor, Katie Younger. Katie has been competing in bodybuilding since 2012 and started in figure and earned her pro card in 2020 at the North Americans. And was that in women's physique?
Yes.
Very cool. Well, welcome, Katie. It's really nice to have you on FBB Forum.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. And I want to mention to the listeners out there, if you like this content, please like and subscribe. It's really helps me out a lot. So thank you. So I wanted to first start with how you got started in bodybuilding. And did you have an athletic or sports background before you started?
Sure. So prior to bodybuilding, I was actually a marathon runner.
Wow.
Um, I ran I ran cross country in high school. I did not run in college, but I started training for my first half marathon my sophomore year of college. So Friday nights when everybody was going out partying, I was home resting for my long run Saturday mornings and my recovery run Sunday.
Wow.
Um, so I ran for 7.5, almost 8 years. I did 26 full and half marathons.
Wow.
Um,
It's amazing.
ran Boston twice, and I loved running, but I was tired of being just small. Like I looked like a marathoner, like skin and bones, just I mean, 70, 80 miles a week, that's kind of how you result your body. It's not muscular, not attractive.
Yeah, I understand.
So I had a friend who showed me Nicole Wilkins. It was in Muscle and Fitness. And I was like, that's what I want to look like. So I started lifting like 3, 4 times a week. There was structure to it, but not like there is now. So I was still running like my first 2 years of competing. I started in figure and so I'm in Ohio. So I started with the Lieberman Natural Show up in Lakewood, so the Cleveland area.
Okay.
And I was instantly hooked. I was very small, very skinny, but I really buckled down with training, dropped running. And then I competed from 2012 to like the end of 2015. And then I took a break for a couple years. But my friend, when he introduced me, I was like, this is incredible. Like seeing women look strong and feminine, it was like the whole package.
Yeah, that's great. That's really cool that you liked it so much. And that must have been a big switch though to go from marathon running to bodybuilding.
Yeah. So what for me, like when my cardio starts to climb on prep, I'm like, this is old hat. We used to do this for hours. So
Oh, I bet.
so
Yeah,
I don't mind it. So when I started working with Derek, I was like, I like cardio. So you can give me whatever you need to.
oh yeah. I don't hear that from too many bodybuilders, so that's cool.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's unique. It's a special trait I carry.
Now, who convinced you to do your first contest and how did you kind of get started in your first show?
So it was the same friend. His name is Nick. He was the one who introduced me to it and he, encouraged me to do it. And he was like, if he knew I was very goal oriented. Like when I was running, I did my half marathon. I wanted something bigger, something to push me more. So I wanted to kind of step up from just lifting to training with purpose and with intention behind it. So
Sure.
it all kind of worked in that direction.
That's terrific. Now, in terms of the switch to women's physique from figure, why did you make the switch? What appealed to you about it?
I like the more muscular look in general. And then me personally, like the way that my structure is built, I'm very short waisted. So
Oh
for
yeah,
me to achieve that like itty bitty waist, like Sid has in figure or these Olympians, like I have very short waist. So in order to look like I have that, I build a bigger back, and then it's to the point where I'm building density and width. It seemed like a better fit for me to transition to physique. Actually, my posing coach here in Columbus, Tamara Watkins, when I returned to competing, so in 2019 after I had my daughter, we were posing for figure, and then she goes, let's try physique.
okay,
And I was very reluctant to do it, but I love the
really,
posing.
yeah,
I loved the posing. If I can ditch the heels, like that's a bonus.
yeah, yeah,
So I went on to do my first show returning from pregnancy was the Ohio State show here in Columbus, and I did figure and physique. I won the overall physique, won my class in figure, and my posing coach Tamara, she looked at me, she goes, "Aren't you glad you did physique?" So I immediately fell in love with it. Then just the posing, it's more of an art for me, so I really
yeah.
enjoy it.
That's one thing as a fan. I like the physique because yeah, you get to do your posing routine and you get to show some more creativity. I think it's so kind of
Absolutely.
regimented with figure, you know. And would you consider moving up to the women's bodybuilding division eventually?
No.
No,
For
gonna stick
me,
with.
for me, this is like I like my size. If I put on a little bit more, I'm okay with that. But like to jump from physique to bodybuilding, it's not on my list of like things to achieve.
Sure, I understand that. Yeah. Now, I think you're really impressive because you have three young kids. You have two 17-month-old twins
Mhm.
and a 4-year-old daughter. And so what is it like to juggle having three young children in your fitness career and work and
Oh,
everything?
it's wild.
I
So yeah,
bet.
my daughter turns 4 months on Sunday. So it is insane. So like I said, I returned to competing in 2019. My daughter was 6 months old to the date this time. I did my pro debut.
Okay.
So for me, like bodybuilding's my sanity, kind of that piece of me in mom world. For work, I actually run my own training and nutritional do that from home, which is nice. I set my hours, they're very structured. And, obviously being a bodybuilder, we thrive on structure and routine. And that's actually helped me with parenting. Like with one kid, that was easy. Adding twins to the mix, I was like, okay, we need structure, we need a routine, we need a schedule. So it's chaotic, but sticking to that like that time schedule, the routine, it really helps. But honestly, like bodybuilding gives me that daily piece of me, that like mental freedom to just shut down from the world and just focus on something outside of the house for a minute. So it's nice.
That's terrific. That's really cool. Yeah. And that, yeah, that is kind of nice to have an outlet like that when you have the three kids.
Absolutely.
Now, do you and your husband hope to have more kids, or are you done with
No,
three? It's probably
no,
enough,
we
huh?
are done. We wanted to go from one to two. But God had other plans for us. When we found out it was twins, like neither of us have twins in our families, and it was a natural pregnancy. And my doctor looked at me, he goes, that's the 2.7% chance of happening naturally when it's not in genetics. And I was like,
Really?
I should go buy a lottery ticket. So,
That's cool. Yeah. Oh, but in terms
but
of genetic disposition to having twins, you mean?
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's amazing.
So it was a surprise, and my twins they were full term, and they're healthy and crazy, and my daughter is a great big sister, but it is the circus here.
I bet.
So
Yeah. Oh man, that's so cool. Um, that and are you going to bring them to your shows? Do you think, or I don't know if the seven.
not this year. Not this year. Maybe when they're a little bit older and they kind of understand a little bit more. Like my daughter knows, like I get to wear a sparkly swimsuit, and she loves the trophies I've won in the past, but maybe when they're older. But
That's
I'm
cool.
glad that I get to raise at least like a daughter and kind of set that example of like you can be a female and you can be strong. And my boys will grow up knowing women don't have to be small and dainty and frail. So,
Yeah,
that's kind of as a mom to like little ones, I kind of want to set that standard for them. So
that's terrific. Yeah, that's a good role model for sure. That's great. Very
thank you. Thanks.
cool. I was curious, what do your parents think about your fitness career? Are they supportive of it?
So when I first began, my mom is very like old fashioned in the sense like women should be small and dainty, and she
Hmm.
loved my running because that was kind of the figure that I held.
Yeah.
My dad is, super supportive, always has been, just very curious about it. But
Uh-huh.
I think it took them a while to kind of understand like why I do this, like, what drew me to it. And I think,
Hmm.
as parents, you're gonna worry when it's not a familiar field. People talk about like abuse of supplements or, other things that they see as reckless and dangerous,
Hmm.
without knowing about the sport, knowing how each individual's coached. But they understand a lot better now. I mean, it's been 11 years of competing on and off. So
Yeah.
they're fully supportive now. And it's wonderful to kind of have them in my corner now with it. So it's nice.
That's great. Do they come to the shows too, or do they try to?
They've been to local ones. They haven't traveled outside of Ohio for them, but they've been to the local ones.
That's terrific. That's so cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Um, and I just some of the women I've interviewed, the parents aren't always supportive, and so and I feel bad for the women whose parents aren't supportive. You know, you want your parents' approval, and you want them
Of
to
course.
love what you're love to do. So yeah.
Yeah. And again, like I think a big part of it was like that initial like lack of knowledge of the sport or like, how I handled it or, they want you to be safe and healthy. And when you don't know the ins and outs of everyone's prep or each individual's routine, I'm sure it's like you hear all the negative stuff in the
Mhm.
news or whatever. And I think that's where people tend to just their minds go to when they don't know. So, but now
Sure.
they're supportive and I love it.
That's terrific. That's so cool. Um, Now, my next few questions are about prep, and I was just curious,
Sure.
what is like the toughest aspect of competition prep for you?
Um, so I know you and I kind of talked about this and you saw it on my social media. So this last prep, like last year, I think I saw a lot of like postpartum stress and anxiety and a little bit of like postpartum depression still going on.
Yeah.
Like the training, the eating, that was the easy part for me. But like last year, like being completely transparent, I don't think mentally I should have done prep. I kind of used it as a band-aid to keep me going where I probably should have stopped and like addressed my mental health first, if
Sure.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I knew like so a little background, like my twins were full term. My son Colin came straight home. My son Luca, when he was born, he wasn't breathing. So he
Oh,
was at Children's Hospital for almost a month. He's perfectly healthy and fine, just started walking.
yeah.
So everything's good with him. But I had so much like angst with that
Hmm.
I felt like I had no control in my life. So for me, last year, prep was the only like controlled variable in my life.
Hmm.
Um, so last year, I think, like when I took a step back and said, like, what could I have done differently is probably not to compete last year.
Hmm.
But this year, like you and I discussed, and you saw my son just started walking, and that
Yeah.
was like my biggest stressor. All of his like tests have come back good. He's healthy. There's nothing wrong. So stress is not as much of a factor right now. So the toughest thing right now is probably sleep. Like
Oh,
the
yeah.
food's easy. I love the training.
Uh-huh.
But like just getting enough sleep. Like
Yeah.
I try to go to bed early. And I love when people say, "Oh, you should go take a nap." Well, I have three kids, I run a business, I work from home. Like there's no time in the day to nap.
Yeah.
So
I
I
understand.
think that element of sleep and like recovery, I think that's probably the toughest part of prep for me.
Yeah. I
Um,
understand.
like I think Derek was a little taken back. Like he has me record my daily steps. Like I average like 19 to 22,000 steps a day between like
Wow.
the minimal cardio he has me doing and then just constant movement.
Oh,
So
wow. That's a lot.
yeah, it is, but that's mom life.
Yeah, that's true.
But nothing to complain about. If I had a wish to be granted, it'd be I'd wish for more time in the day to sleep. So
Yeah, I
that's about it
understand.
though.
Yeah, sleep is important too, and it's good
Oh
for
yeah.
recovery for sure. Just yeah, mental health and everything. Yeah. Um, I was curious, like when you're in prep, like what food item is kind of lingering in your head, waiting for the prep to end.
Well, during prep, like I actually just talked to Derek about this. Like my trigger food is not even like sweets that much, but for me, I love like almond butter and peanut butter.
Oh
So
yeah,
I told Derek, I was like, you got to take it out. Like, I'm that kind of person. Like, I have good control, but like when I start eating it, I'm like, it's just better without it. But like post show, I crave like big salty burgers, like
really?
just
Yeah,
something that's not weighed out, something that's just like, it's not even that bad. Like, there's a place here in town. They're known for bison burgers. So
yeah,
like that's what I want after a show, like real salty and just like a good burger. But like
yeah.
honestly, like food cravings aren't huge for me. So
Good. Yeah,
I consider that a blessing.
yeah. That makes life a lot easier for you, I bet, when you're especially in
Yeah.
prep. Yeah. Now, I we talked about you do have a prep coach, and that's Derek Natcher, and
Yes.
and But and do you have a posing coach too? And can you tell me about how you got Derek as a coach?
So we'll start with Derek. So I've had a few coaches previously. When I got back into competing after my daughter was born, I worked with a prep coach who was a registered dietitian. So like prior to like that couple year break, like I kind of prepped myself. Like I had friends in the industry who kind of helped, like not a real formal coaching experience. Um, but this coach upon returning was great, but there were some things that occurred with him where like I just couldn't trust him as a coach. Like he wasn't
Mm,
there when I needed him,
yeah. Hmm.
etc. So I know a couple of the girls that Derek coaches, and I've like talked to them pretty in depth after deciding to part ways with my coach, and they had nothing but good things to say to or about him. So
Yeah.
he and I like emailed back and forth. We hopped on a call. We talked for like 45 minutes, just an easy phone call, and that connection was there. And Derek's one of those people, like he is extremely successful with his clients. Like they
Yeah.
look great, preps are seamless, but
Hmm.
he's quiet in the scene. Like his clients speak loudly, like with their success.
Hmm.
But he's not like an ego-driven coach. He's not someone out there chasing clout.
Hmm.
He cares about his clients and he wants success. So
Yeah.
to me, like that makes a really good coach.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, so he's great with that. For posing, last year I worked with Ashley Jones a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Are you familiar? So yeah,
Yeah, she's great. Yeah.
she is wonderful. So she helped me last year, and I'll probably get with her again. She just does it over Skype or Zoom. So she's good. And then I do have a strength coach here in Columbus that I train with, and we do glutes and hamstrings once a week. That's like my weakest area. So I have him. He like really hammers it out. His name is Joe Lasco. He
Okay.
used to train over at Westside Barbell when Louis was still alive, and
Okay.
he has his own gym now. And he has coached at Fort Knox. He has done a lot of collegiate athletics, and he's wonderful. So between like Derek and Joe, I've got this like powerhouse of a team behind me.
That's terrific. Yeah. No, and I've heard so many good things about Derek. I know he's got Sherry Priami and Emily Schubert, have been
Yeah.
doing really well under him and are some top pros now. So yeah, no, he's and I've met him. He's a really good guy. He's good to work with, I think. So
Yeah, he's been very, I don't want to say like laid back, not like in a lazy sense, but he just takes the stress out of it.
sure.
And it's really nice to have that.
That's terrific. Yeah. So he's kind of like a chill coach too.
Yes. Yes, that is. And honestly, like I'm sure you've talked to enough people in this industry, like we stress ourselves out over nothing.
Yeah.
Like, at this point of prep where I am, we still have plenty of time, but of course I've had those like intrusive thoughts like I'm not gonna be ready, or I'm not gonna be A, B, and C enough. And Derek's like, you're fine. We have plenty of time. So
That's
he kind
good.
of
Yeah.
checks you and back to reality a little bit.
That's good. Yeah. No, it's good to have that and that kind of voice of reason, that's good to have.
Yeah.
Um, Now you mentioned you have a business. Could you talk about your business a little bit?
Yeah. So my business is called Younger Bodies. And like I said, it is a personal training and nutritional coaching company. Um, like 90% of my clients are remote, so all online. We do weekly check-ins. I have clients that are lifestyle clients, so just trying to improve their health. I have women who are either trying to get their health in line to get pregnant, are pregnant, or working on postpartum nutrition and getting their bodies back. And for me, like that's kind of my favorite field to work with,
Yeah,
just because
sure.
I can relate. And I'll talk about the hard stuff, like the emotional aspects that play into all of that. I do have clients that compete in men and women's divisions, and
Okay.
so it's like full spectrum. I have athletes as young as like high school through like women and men in their 60s and 70s. So it's
Wow.
literally like end to end. I've worked with professional athletes with nutrition, and I love it. I really, really thrive on just keeping things very personal with clients. I want
Hmm,
kind of like how Derek is with me. Like, I want to know more than like just your name and your weight on the scale this week. Like,
sure.
I want my clients to feel like they're valued, like I actually care about them, which I do. So
That's
that
terrific.
kind of keeps me engaged. Prior to this, I was a teacher. I used to teach high school Spanish. So
Oh, you did?
yeah. So I kind of hit the end of like my teaching. I taught inner city and I loved it, but it was becoming like extremely political.
Yeah,
And I
sure.
started training, I got certified, started this training business kind of on the side, and it grew to the point where I was like, well, I don't love teaching anymore. So I kind of stepped back from that and dove back into this. So it
Wow.
all worked out very nicely. And, I can do it from home, raise my own kids.
Yeah.
And that was, one thing I always wanted to do was raise my own family. So
Yeah, that's terrific.
the cards played out very well.
How long did you teach?
I taught for 9 years. Most of that time was spent teaching high school. And
Hmm.
then I did a year in middle school. And then my last 2 years were pre-K and kindergarten.
Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah,
So
teaching is kind of, yeah, very political here in Florida for sure. My goodness. And
yeah, I've heard a lot about Florida education lately, but that's a whole different topic.
yeah. Um, now we've talked a little bit about this already, but is it tough to balance your business with your home life and being a mom with your fitness career? It seems like a lot
Um,
to juggle.
it is a lot to juggle, but I have a very firm like deadline for my clients. They have an assigned check-in day, and they have to get an email to me and sent in by like 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I do have clients, like I have one in Hawaii. I have a client who's a flight attendant. So like on Sunday, she was in Alaska. She's in Hawaii right now for work. She'll be in Guam for a few days. So
Wow.
there's flexibility with clients, or if they're like, hey, I'm running late, like I'll get to you later. I understand. So
Sure.
big on communication, but like most of my clients are so good with
Hmm,
like following procedure that it doesn't stress me out.
great.
And my daughter's in school till 12, so I try to have all my work done while she's at school. When she comes back home, like I can spend time with her.
Hmm.
My boys nap middle of the afternoon, so it's like one-on-one time with her. They
Hmm.
get up, and it's the whole family. So my scheduling, like I said earlier, like I'm so big on structure and schedule now with 3 kids, a business, a husband, like my prep, my own personal needs. So it
Yeah,
all works out pretty well.
that's cool. Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot to juggle though.
Some days I sit back and I say, okay, I can do this. You got to give yourself a pep talk every now and then.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Now, in terms of competing, where in are you going to compete this year? And you already did your pro debut, right?
Yes. And
How
that one
about,
was that was Chicago last year. The coach I was
oh,
working
cool.
with then is the one who I was with for my pro card when I earned my pro card. And I don't know like what was going on with it. He had another really big pro at that show, and he told me he's like, she's my priority, just so you know. So I was like,
Oh,
okay. Um, and he knew how my body responded a certain way. Like our peak was just not good. He did things kind of backwards, and
huh.
of course, I don't know. Like I don't put blame on anyone, but he knew my body, and things just
Yeah.
didn't. Like I looked better a week and a half before the shows, but
Oh, I
so
see.
that was my debut. But this year we have 2 shows in June that we're aiming for. We're looking at doing Toronto and then Puerto Rico 2 weeks later. Well, 2.5 weeks later. So
That's great. You
yeah.
got, do you have some childcare lined up?
Oh yeah. The grandmas, my mom and dad are about 25 minutes from here. And then Jay, my husband, his mom is like 10 minutes from here. So yeah, like I said, no kids on these trips. I just don't think they'd have fun. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, Puerto Rico, we're going to stay for a few days afterwards, and it's just going to be a mom and dad kid free like R&R time before we come back. But
sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
childcare's it's all lined up already. So
that's terrific. Yeah.
yeah,
And Toronto's not too far from you. That's just across
no,
Lake Erie, basically.
it's like a 6-hour drive at most. So we're driving there. Obviously, Puerto Rico will fly.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's going to be fun. It's a good excuse to travel. So
Yeah.
hopefully that'll all play out pretty well.
That's terrific. Now, I wish you the best in both of those shows. That's terrific.
Thank you.
Yeah. Um, I was curious, have you had some feedback from the judges on where you need to improve your physique?
Yes. So last year, feedback was so obviously like coming back from pregnancy, like my core control was between like being overcarbed and then still like pretty fresh postpartum. Like I said, I was like 8 months postpartum. My lower core control was not the greatest. And
Hmm.
then just overall density. After a 38 and a half week pregnancy with twins to like trying to get back on a get on a pro stage. Eight
Hmm.
months later, like I built as much up as I could. I knew I was going to be tiny. So feedback was core control and then density. And we have like hammered that out. So
That's great.
like I'll never be the biggest one on stage. I'm very real with this. Derek knows this. I know this. I'm never gonna be like, oh, how am I not huge? Like it's just not my frame, my size. So we're gonna really try to bring conditioning, like my density on my frame. So I think we've done a pretty good job with that so far. But we'll see. We'll see what the judges say.
Yeah, I was impressed like with your abs and stuff after having the kids. Your abs look amazing. So yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. They looked pretty good last year. I'm really proud of how they look now, like not even a year and a half later. I mean,
Yeah.
women get a lot of separation. I had like minimal after the twins. I did not need a C-section for them, which I was very grateful for. I was very
Yeah.
surprised, but like
Uh-huh.
no scarring or anything to deal with, so that was good.
That is really good. Yeah. Um, Now I was curious in terms of training, like what's your favorite muscle group to train and what's your least favorite?
Um, Least favorite, I just think it's boring. I do not like training arms.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
okay, more specifically biceps. Like I love triceps.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I feel like there's only so many variations of curls you can do.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I understand.
favorite favorite training days, I would say either back or like I said, like I work with my strength and conditioning coach for my glutes and hamstrings. Like they were definitely my biggest weakness, but like I mean, he kills me every single week, but I love it. So either glutes and hams or back.
Very
So
good. Yeah.
yeah,
No, your back does look really good. Yeah. And
thank you.
yeah.
We've put on some good density with it. Like my lower lats needed some good development since last year, and we're like checking the boxes as much as we can. So I'm excited. I'm excited. I think Derek's gonna get me really conditioned, and I think we're gonna bring really good packages here.
Yeah. I think Derek does a really good job with getting his clients conditioned and from what I've seen.
Oh yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, let's see. I get a warning there from Zoom. um, Now, I was curious, have you been getting more attention from fans on social media, since you turned pro? And is it hard to kind of keep up with social media for you?
So for me, I feel like my biggest like benefit from having IFBB Pro next to my name now, like was I grew my client base. Not a ton, but it definitely there was a nice influx afterwards. And
Yeah,
I think it's to me it's kind of funny because it's not like my knowledge base changed, like my abilities didn't change, but having that credential more or less, people
yeah,
like that. And I get that completely. But for me, social media is not like maybe it's because I'm like mid 30s, like I don't really care. And maybe
yeah,
that sounds
uh,
bad, but I love it for like connecting with people or,
yeah,
women who are newer competitors and who just need encouragement. Like I love that aspect. So it's
hmm,
not really difficult for me to deal with. Um, of course, like I love, meeting people through social media and then getting to meet them in real life. Like I always think that's cool. I'm
yeah,
very awkward in person at times.
uh-huh,
So it kind of gives me like that comfort, that leeway into actually like meeting people in person.
that's great.
But yeah, for me, it's definitely not like a difficult thing to control or manage. I mean, if you look at my Instagram, it's like bodybuilding, my children, my dog, my husband, more bodybuilding, more kids. Like
Uh-huh,
I still stay very, I think, rooted in like who I am. Like John Meadows was a family friend of ours, and I admired him because that's how he was. It was like family, God, and bodybuilding.
yeah,
And
I've heard
like
good things
I
about him.
that was so admirable to me. Like it
Yeah,
was always family first.
that's great.
And
Yeah,
when I turned pro, like he and I talked, and I was like you were such a good example to follow. So,
hmm.
I'd rather be known for like my character and quality of who I am versus like, oh, she has 30,000 followers on Instagram. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I know that the
like
whole influencer thing is just kind of it gets old
it's
sometimes.
yeah, I mean, there's so much behind it. And if people think I'm like a positive influence to them or like I inspire them, I love to hear that. But like if I don't have 10K followers or whatever, like I
Yeah,
still have my family and my career and my competition paths. So maybe it sounds negative, but
No,
You
no,
know,
not at
I'm
all.
gonna stay in my lane and just keep moving.
No, that's it's kind of keeping it real too. I think that's good. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I know what you mean about social media. I think younger people, it's somewhat all consuming because they've kind
Yeah.
of grown up on it, and
Oh
I'm
yeah. I mean, I'm just glad we don't have dial up anymore.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's nice. And like I like social media for networking and just kind of, meeting people that way. But like you
Mhm.
said, like, we didn't grow up with it. Like we had dial up and AOL and it's stuff like I think we know how to socialize without Instagram or without a Facebook or TikTok or whatever. So
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's a dying art with some kids these days.
Yeah, people don't know their own phone numbers, so that's special.
That's a sign right there. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, we're running a little bit out of time, but I got a few more questions for you, and I think I'll be able to
Sure.
get them in.
Okay.
I was curious, what would you do to improve the sport of bodybuilding, and how would you make the sport better?
I think my biggest critique of the sport as a whole, at least for women's physique, is we need more opportunities to compete.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
I'm sure you're very aware of this. Like, there's like 9 shows in the
Hmm.
US for us to pick from, like 9.
Yeah.
You look at wellness, like there's a show in Vegas this weekend. There's 5 women signed up for wellness at the pro level.
Hmm.
When I did Tampa and Chicago, there were 30 women in our class.
Yeah.
And that was, it's because we have less than a dozen shows to choose from. And I don't know if it's because people don't think physique is feminine enough or too close to women's bodybuilding, which, has always been in the shadows because it's not feminine. But I
Mm.
just think having equal opportunities to figure, to bikini, to wellness would be great.
Yeah, I agree. Hmm.
We work just as hard as every other athlete who's competing.
Hmm.
Women's physique competitors work just as hard as men in 212 or open bodybuilding. So for these men and these other women to have dozens of shows to pick from, and for us less than a dozen,
Hmm.
I think that's very limiting to us. And to see,
Hmm.
now they don't have the point system. It's if you win, you go to the Olympia, but no longer you can't earn a spot outside of winning. So
Yeah, I
unless
know.
unless you are one of 9 essentially to win, it's like, and you can double up on wins. So I just don't want to see it just like fitness for women. It's like it feels like it's dying because
Hmm.
it's so limited for us.
I agree. Yeah, and I think that's a shame. I agree. I do think there should be more shows, and for like you're in Columbus, and for the Arnold to drop fit or figure women's bodybuilding and women's physique was really disappointing because that's
Oh,
like a tier one show, and you're taking away a tier one show for the competitors. So
right. Yeah. I mean, I had a couple clients who like came into town for it. They're like, "Do you want to go to the show? Or like you can meet your other women's physique competitors." I was like, "There is no physique."
yeah.
And like my husband's not a bodybuilder, but he's been here in Columbus his entire life. He gets in. Even he's like, "Why isn't there physique?" I was like, "I don't know. I don't know if it's a money thing. Like again, if people don't like the sport like we do, but like
Mhm.
you said, it's a tier 1 show. So to take that away from us,
Yeah.
it's just not, it doesn't level the playing field whatsoever.
Yeah, I just don't think it's fair. I think yeah, I was really disappointed with that. And
Yeah.
and I kind of like I feel like Arnold, you know, isn't being a great representative for the sport if he's gonna withhold those or withdraw those categories. So yeah, so
Yeah, you're taking away half of the women's opportunities to compete. So
yeah.
kind of a sad day, but
Yeah, that is. Oh man. Um, I'm going to just ask you one more question. I know you live in
sure.
Columbus. Do you find that that's a supportive community for bodybuilding? I mean, I know Arnold
Oh
is
yeah.
there. Yeah, but it must be, right?
Oh yeah. They call it like the Midwest Mecca here in Columbus. And for me, like I'm not a person who I don't need like a massive corporate gym. I like the smaller, like nitty-gritty, like gyms where it's like more private, but
Mhm.
everybody there is focused. Like I'm not sure how familiar you are with gyms here, but like Metro Fitness is here in Worthington, and that's a massive gym here. Powerhouse, which is like the pros gym downtown. I know a lot of people go there when they're in town for the Arnold.
Yeah.
I train, like I said, out of my strength coach's gym. He was over at Westside Barbell. He's literally right down the strip from where it was. And It's a private gym. The machines are like the old school Nautilus machines, like the good stuff.
Really?
Um,
Great.
from like
Yeah.
the 80s and 90s. And
Wow.
Columbus has a lot of like small, like underground private gyms that people don't really know about.
Great.
So I think like I don't like using this word, but like that vibe that bodybuilding needs, like the culture is definitely here.
Okay. That's
So
great.
it's, I mean, I feel like anywhere you go, and especially like if you look a little more than average, people are like, "Are you bodybuilder? Do you compete?" So it is fun to talk about. But yeah, Columbus, we've got a lot going on here. But again,
Yeah.
like I wish the Arnold was a little more inclusive of that, but
Yeah, that's
maybe
true.
maybe that will change. We'll see.
Have you attended the Arnold as a spectator before or as a vendor?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I used to go every year. The expo itself doesn't do anything for me. It is like I have one of my best friends works for GNC headquarters, so she like worked the expo. So
Mm,
going to see people that I know like who are working, or people I haven't seen in years from competing, if they're here, I'd like to see them. But
yeah.
um the expo doesn't really do much for me anymore. But like going to the shows or like the actual events is fun. It's become very widespread. Like they had fencing this year and like
Uh-huh.
jousting.
I
Very
know.
different. No, no women's physique, but they have jousting.
Right. No, I
So,
didn't. Yeah, I thought that was kind of weird.
but like I mean, I live maybe 12 minutes from where the expo is.
Okay.
So for me, I'm just like, oh, the traffic. Again, I feel so old saying that because everybody's so hyped up, but I'm like, I don't want to deal with parking. But
I understand.
it's so good for the city, and it brings in a lot of business and a lot of people. But it's just, yeah, it's fun. It's a big deal here.
We better wrap up. I'm running out of time. Could you do a quick flex for me?
Yeah. Anything specific?
Oh, double bicep?
I don't know if I can fit in here.
Oh yeah, that's terrific. Wow, you look terrific.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I'll get this posted soon and I'll include your Instagram and your coach's Instagrams too
Okay.
and info about your business too. But thank you so much for joining me. I really